The truth is, a lot of us prefer Egypt over Eden. I'm not talking about modern day Egypt or Cairo or anything like that. Go see the pyramids, go see all the things. I'm talking about within the context of the biblical narrative. So, as y'all know, in Genesis 1, we see the beautiful Garden of Eden, right? We see Adam and Eve who are placed there intentionally to steward and cultivate the land, to dwell with God, to just live in peace and abundance and love and all of the things. And so the thing about Eden is there are rules, right? Even though there's this beautiful land of abundance and beauty and all the things, God still demands rules. He's like, hey, listen, y'all can eat from any tree of this garden, but you cannot eat from this tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So the humans are resistant. Eve ends up getting tempted by Satan. She takes a bite of the fruit, and then Adam does the same thing. And so much for Eden, right? And I think when we have this picture of Eden, a lot of times we picture an Eden that is just bliss, right? And so we say we want to get back to Eden. In the words of Donald Lawrence, I believe, let's get back to Eden, live on top of the world. Come on and live, right? We want to live on top of the world, not realizing that to live in the garden, to inhabit this garden, that means there are rules, right? And so it's like we say we want Eden. We say we want to be in this land with God. We say we want all of this abundance and this beauty, and we want to just kind of be in this state of bliss. But the reality is there's a cost. You have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice your wants, your needs, your fleshly desires, lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, pride of life, all of these things that the enemy is trying to tempt you with. You have to sacrifice that to actually dwell in peace in the Garden of Eden, right? In this metaphorical garden that we will one day, get back to. But when we get back to it, I think there's this misconception that there won't be rules in this life. Read Genesis 1 again. If Genesis 1 doesn't convince you, let me take you through the Israelites narrative real quick. So we see in the book of Exodus, the Israelites are in bondage. They are slaves to the Egyptians. They are being whipped. They're being put to work, right? And undue work at that. It's not a fair system. It's not a just system. They are in captivity and bondage. Yet God makes a way through the deliverer Moses. He makes a way for them to come out of Egypt, right? But then as they're in the wilderness, they keep complaining. Every single time that God makes a way for them, they complain. When God gives them food, they're like, I don't want this food. I'm tired of this food. They're like, oh, we need water, as if God can't provide water for them. They keep essentially doubting and questioning God and trying to do things in their own strength. And it's like, that ain't gonna work. That ain't gonna never work for real. And so the thing is, as they're complaining and as they're being bitter about all of these things, they start to miss Egypt. They don't realize that God is trying to bring them into a new sort of Eden where they can truly dwell with Him. They don't even want to, they fear the Lord. The glory of the Lord is too strong, it's too powerful. So they are literally afraid of it. So they send Moses as their representative to talk and convene with the Lord on their behalf, but they're not really trying to have this intimate relationship with God as a people group. I'm not saying that every single Israelite is like this, but as a people group, they're not trying to have this intimate relationship with God. Yet they keep complaining and they keep wanting to go back to this place that God has delivered them from, the place where they were complaining about being when they were there. But I think so many times it is so tempting. It is so tempting after God has delivered us from something to just want to go back. And I know for me personally, and the reason why I'm I'm feeling this is because for me personally, over the last few weeks, I'm about to get married, you know what I'm saying? Ooh, ooh. But engagement has been a time of a lot of reflection for me, because I've just started to think about my past, and I've started to kind of miss some of the things I used to do. No, I wasn't that wild. Let me clear that up. I wasn't that wild, but I did get into some things, and there were also some things I didn't get into that I'm like, what if I did, and so it's or for example, I don't listen to, or I try not to listen to perverse music. The reality is, though, sometimes the beat be going crazy, or sometimes, like, I'll be honest, if the words feel clever, I am attracted to words. And so, like, there have been times where I'm like, dang, I want to kind of go back and listen to this music that I know for me personally, God's like, that's not what I want for you. You know what I'm saying? There's just different things, even with like dressing more modest. And I know I'm showing a little collarbone, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But like with dressing more modest, sometimes I'm like, I what if I dressed like, like a baddie? Not to say I'm not a baddie already, you know what I'm saying? But like, what if I really was out here, like, dressing in a way that's really, really drawing attention to my body with the hopes of like getting attention, or I don't know, right? But like, sometimes I'm like, what if we did something beyond just like those more surface level desires? I think I've been realizing that there's a cost to actually living with God, to being in bliss with God. It means really sacrificing my plans, especially in the unknown where I don't know what's going to happen, right? For the Israelites, when they're in the wilderness, it's like, God, I know that you're saying that you're taking us into a promised land, but I can't see it. And we've been out here for far too long, right? I'm ready to like, let me go back to something that's familiar, because at least it's familiar. I know what's there, as opposed to like, oh, you're leading me into something new. And so let me embrace that. Let me embrace this period of uncertainty, this period of like preparation, I've just been reflecting a lot lately, and I think I realized like, yeah, I honestly do in a lot of ways prefer Egypt. And yeah, it's like I would prefer this theoretical state of Egypt. I would prefer this place where I can be in control, because I think that's ultimately what it is. Like I be wanting to have a sense of control. I be wanting to feel like I have control over like my situations, over my environment, over the future in a way. And I think what this period of my life has been teaching me is that like the greatest control is to control oneself in alignment with God's desires. I think the difference between Egypt and Eden is that self-control factor, right? In Egypt, you are being controlled. Outside of yourself, you are being controlled, right? By the powers at be, by the different things, the habits that you have, by your flesh. You're being controlled by these things. But then in Eden, when you're in Eden, God is asking that you practice self-control. It means that you can't necessarily control all of your circumstances, your surroundings, your environment. You might not be able to control that, but you can control yourself. Again, in alignment with God's desire for you. And it's like, wow. I think self-control, it takes faith, it takes trust, it takes believing that, oh, God's way is truly better than my way, and that there will be a reward. Even if that reward isn't even what I would imagine it to be, like there will be a reward at the end of all of this. At the end of all of this, it is worth it to follow God. Why? Simply because God is God, and that's faith. That's faith, and that's dependence, and that's the mindset that's needed to actually dwell in bliss with God, as in an Eden-like state, right? And so I'm reading this book by Megan Fate Marshman, and she kind of talks about this thing of control, right? And so I just want to read this quote real quick. When you boil it down to its essence, faith is nothing more than dependence. It is acknowledging that God is God and we are not, and that we need him for absolutely everything. It is relying on God for what we are tempted to rely on ourselves for. The struggle of dependence is not a matter of who is in control, for God is truly the one in control. It's about what kind of relationship we want to have with the one who is in control. A choice between a competing or a submitting relationship. A dependent relationship with God goes beyond a mere power dynamic. It delves into the nature of the relationship. And so that book is interesting, or that those lines are interesting to me, because I think I'm realizing that, like, it's easier to go back or like want to not really dwell with God, because dwelling with God, being dependent on God, honestly is hard. It takes trust and it takes relinquishing control. But while you're relinquishing control, while you're letting go of, like, hey, listen, I can't control my future. I can't control what will or will not happen. I can't control the circumstances that I'm under. At the end of the day, what I can control is myself. I can control how I act. I can control how I love the Lord. I can control how I love other people. I can control the things that I do or do not engage in. And that's what God is asking for us. That's what he's asking from us. Is there's a cost. There's a cost to being Eden, right? But I think we're fooled a lot of times when we're thinking kind of like about what was, what could have been, right? Because it's like, in that place, yes, you were seeking God. Yes, you were desperate for God, but your desperation was different. Your desperation was tinged with salvation. You were like, Lord, save me. But I think when we're in Eden, it's like, oh, wait. Lord, keep me. Lord, you are all I need. Lord, help me rely fully on you. And that's sanctification. And I think that salvation and sanctification, both very important, utmost of the utmost importance. But I think sanctification a lot of times takes more trust than we ever could realize. It's like, oh, I am really laying down my life. I'm dying to myself day after day so that I might dwell in a blissful state of shalom with God. And I think that's what God wants for us, even if we might not want it for ourselves. That's what God wants for us. And so, yeah, that's it. I'm gonna let y'all go. Choose Eden. Choose Eden. Bye.